We're going to be talking about something very important and very sensitive. The picture that you see on your screen is Tara Singh Hayer, founder of the Indo-Canadian Times, the largest and the oldest Punjabi language weekly newspaper in Canada and the leading Punjabi language newspaper in North America. He used the paper in Canada, United States and England to speak out against Khalistanis and their violence. On October 15th, 1995, Mr. Hayer swore an affidavit to the RCMP and it read something like this. He spoke about Bagri, who stayed talking to Mr. Purival for about 1 hour, during which time the subject of the Air India Flight 182 bombing came up. He's basically describing what he heard when these two people were speaking. Purival asked Bagri how he managed to do what he did, which was plant that bomb. Then Bagri, of course, replied that they, which is of course the Babbar Khalsa, wanted the government of India to come on their knees and give them the state of Khalistan. Bagri then also said if everything would have gone as planned, this is something that perhaps you haven't learned before, the plane would have blown up at the Heathrow airport with no passengers on it. But because the flight was half an hour late, it blew up over the ocean. Purival then goes on asking how he managed to put the bomb inside the plane, to which Bagri also went on to say that when the device was ready, Surjan Singh Gill was appointed and supposed to take it to the airport, but when it was ready and it was shown to him, he got scared and resigned from the organization, which is the Babbar Khalsa. Bagri then suggested to Talvinder Singh Parmar that they should kill Surjan Singh Gill because he might snitch on them. But Parmar said that is not a good idea because that would bring suspicion on them, and so they just warned Gill not to say anything. Bagri then said that they should get someone else to take the bomb inside a suitcase to the Vancouver airport and put it on the plane. Well, after that, several assassination attempts were made on Mr. Hayer. In January 1986, a bomb targeting him left him paralyzed, and it was put at his doorstep. The police were called after his son-in-law noticed the wires sticking out of a McDonald's bag. In 1988, he was shot in the newspaper office by Harkirat Singh Bagga, a youth who later pleaded guilty to attempted murder. Bagga turned out to be one of the suspects behind the Air India bombing. The 3.57 Magnum that he used was provided by a California man who was also the owner of a gun found in the residence of Inderjeet Singh Rayat, the only person convicted in the Air India bombing. And of course, a week before the assassination attempt in 1988, Mr. Hayer wrote various editorials in his newspaper about how, while visiting a friend in 1985 in London, England, months after the Air India bombing, he overheard a conversation taking place in the offices of the Punjabi language newspaper Desh Pradesh, in which accused bomber Ajay Singh Bagri described to Tarsim Singh Purival, the editor of Desh Pradesh, how the bomb was smuggled onto Flight 182. Hayer began reporting this in April 1988 when he first named Bagri in his publication. And he said, if you remember the Air India flight that blew up in mid-air, the police connected this could be keeping an eye on Bagri. Subsequently, in July, he referred to Talvinder Singh Parmar and Bagri having a hand in this. He followed up with more specificity in the August edition. In 1985 in England, Bagri was talking noisily about his involvement in the blowing up of the Air India airplane, is what was written. In July 2022, Kim Bolam, a Canadian journalist, put out this letter that was sent to her and Tara Singh Hayer for writing about Ripudaman Malik, one of the masterminds of the Kanishka bombing. Right, as you can see, this is what exactly was written. You are a bad man. You stop lies about good Mr. Malik. He's talking about Ripudaman Malik. You are bad. You stop or you will die. Sikh people are all good. Work hard. still Indian government is bad. You are going to die higher and you will die like the Gandhi woman. He was obviously referring to Indira Gandhi's assassination. And this was clearly on the RCMP on March 19, 1998. Hayer wrote to Chief Superintendent Terry Smith, the head of Surrey RCMP, about his concerns over these threats. And in an excerpt, it was said that given that these threats are escalating and becoming more severe in nature day by day, I respectfully request your assistance in the investigation of these threats, which I hope will cease as a result. I respectfully also request that you take immediate action in this regard. Time is of the essence. I am not capable of defending myself as easily as I used to when I could walk. Smith's response was this: I am concerned that you have not brought these matters to our attention earlier on, given that there seems to be an ongoing series of incidents. We view these circumstances as most serious, and if they are ignored or not reported, it makes our job exceedingly difficult. If you fear for your life and you feel you are in immediate danger, you should be contacting our complaints line, is what was said. On November 18th, 1998, Hayer, who was at the age of 62, was shot to death as he arrived home in Guildford, Surrey, from his office. Already paralyzed from the 1988 assassination attempt, he was gunned down while transferring himself from his specially designed car to his wheelchair. All right, I'm going to go to the big screen and in fact show you some more facts about what happened in Canada and what a big tragedy that was. Air India Flight 182, this was a Canadian tragedy which had a lot of people of Indian origin. Mr. Hayer, other sources, was treated insensitively by the Royal Canadian Mounted Police. They did not take these assessments and these threats with a pinch of salt. The RCMP headquarters distributed correspondence within the RCMP that could identify Hayer as a witness. That was also not done. He specifically informed them of what he heard. The CSIS not informed about plans to send Hayer to UK to gather info against Bagri, which he did, and he also documented. RCMP displayed a callous attitude towards safety of its sources, did not protect them, did not put them in a witness protection program as well. And later on, of course, he was attacked twice. The first time he was paralyzed, and the second time he was killed. RCMP's lack of interest in intel prematurely cut off avenues of investigation. They were not treated with the utmost seriousness and gravitas, and Hayer pointed to Bagri as responsible for the bombing before the attack on him. The RCMP had difficulty in providing Hayer with protection as well, clearly knowing that this was a sensitive person who could be killed or knocked off for having the information that he did. The RCMP finally installed a video surveillance at Mr. Hayer's residence, but it was inadequate. He was killed, and his life, had it been saved, would have provided a lot of closure to the victims and their families of the Kanishka crash. After Hayer's murder, police refused to show surveillance tapes to the family, citing ongoing investigation as well. We're going to talk about this. Ambassador Bhaswati Mukherjee is joining us at this point in time. I'm going to be introducing our other panelists very soon. Ambassador Bhaswati Mukherjee, I have given an intense and lengthy monologue of what really happened during this investigation. This person knew what happened. He heard it from the horse's mouth on what was planned, how it was done, who were involved. All right, if you're not going to believe that there was a threat to his life, which is corroboration and evidence enough, ma'am, that the RCMP and the CSIS of Canada should have protected him, taken his statement seriously. He was killed in 1998, and still the victims of the Kanishka crash and this horrific bombing and terrorist attack cannot find any closure. What do you make and understand from what you've just heard, ma'am?
What I've heard is so tragic and so sad that it makes me feel astounded that this happened during the time when Justin Trudeau's father was Prime Minister of Canada. At that time, it is very clear from what you have read out and what you informed us that the objective was to bring the Indian government to its knees so that a Khalistan could be created, which did not happen and which will never happen. The overwhelming evidence given to the Canadian government was set aside, and those who were culpable were never brought to book, which is why every year there is a sad journey which is made by the family members of those who were killed to pay homage, because there is no closure of the case. And the only time when the Canadian Prime Minister went was in the time of Justin Trudeau's predecessor. He had the decency to go and also pay his condolences. So the point here is there are 2 or 3 lessons to be drawn from here. Number one, that only if the Conservative Party comes to power can there be any improvement in the Indo-Canadian ties and any question of closure. The second is that this case and the way it was handled and the way it was set aside despite the overwhelming evidence shows that the Canadian government not only has double standards, but it is actually violating international law, because it is obliged in the case of such terrorist bombings as a member of the United Nations committed to the UN Charter to cooperate and bring these assassins to book, instead of which, so many decades later, the son of Trudeau Sr. accuses India and our Prime Minister of carrying out extrajudicial killings on its soil, forgetting that the extrajudicial killings which would have happened wherever, in Heathrow or elsewhere, was organized, orchestrated, and delivered on Canadian soil. And there was another bomb which also went off, Vineet, if you remember, that was in Japan, which also killed 2 Japanese baggage handlers, bringing the total number of victims, if I'm not mistaken, to 229 plus 2, that is 231. So what can one make of this except to give it as much publicity as we can, particularly in the Western media, which has such a one-sided, distorted view. I don't know if you've read The Economist of last week, and the manner in which it was hectoring India on cooperating in this investigation, as if we are some terrorist nation that needs to be brought to book. I think that actually, after hearing this history from you, it would appear to me that for a very long time, Canada indeed has been the Pakistan of the West, and it needs to be completely exposed. Vineet.
Sumit Peer, your understanding of what I've just explained to our viewers as well as you. You know, it is clearly a case of being insensitive towards the only person who could have given corroboration and proof towards the people who are actually responsible for killing those people, those innocent people in the Kanishka crash.
Vinny, thanks for having me on your show. What we are seeing, sir, is
Sumit, also, you know, a follow-up question. Does this also give you a perspective and some sort of a background of how Canada operates when it comes to serious crimes?
This is exactly what I was going to answer you, Vinny. You see, sir, when you look at it, the fact remains from a lot of years. You have seen how government has been working hand in glove with the intelligence, with the Canadian police, and with the other agencies of the government to protect the culprits, to protect the terrorists, and to make sure the terrorist safe havens are in Canada. And anybody to everybody who raises a concern, who wants to give evidence, how systematically the system is used to eliminate him. Here, the system was used systematically to eliminate this person. Because whoever wants to raise his voice, whoever wants to give evidence, whoever wants the justice to prevail, so you don't protect him, you let him die. You let him die after one attack where the person is paralytic. Still, you do not get to give him protection because you're wanting somebody to come and put a bullet in his head. So that next time he will not survive the attack. This talks about how systematically all the agencies of the government work hand in gloves with each other to eliminate all those who are against, this Wahhabi jihadi combo, wherein Khalistanis and the jihadis work together in a tandem. Anybody who's against the designs of ISI, how they are systematically eliminated. Anybody who is pro-India, how systematically they are eliminated. And Ambassador ma'am is right when she says that Canada has been the Pakistan. I've been always saying Canada is the Pakistan of West. So there is no doubt on that. Now, this systematic patronage is a bit more smooth. It is not as crass as Pakistanis do. It's not they will give Ranger commandos to these terrorists to be protected. But anybody who is coming against these terrorists will be systematically eliminated. People will be given a green line to eliminate them. They will keep on asking for security, safety, protection. They will not be given. So, in a way, how the government of Canada has been orchestrating and scheming the public execution of the people who are against the cause of Khalistan and people who are against the cause of the jihadis. So this is how you see a government can go so low and leave people as tin ducks. And incidentally, both of these gentlemen who we're discussing, or both of these persons, were Canadian citizens. So for one Canadian citizen who's a Niger, who's a plumber, yet on a no-fly list, you want to go and burn your bridges with India. On the other side, there are Canadians who are attacked, you don't give them security. The Canadians are killed, still you don't find anybody. One more Canadian is killed, still you don't want to find security. And when last so many years, you have been able to find nothing. So it's like, it's like who bombed Kanishka? It was, then you will one day come and say, no, it was an engine failure. That is why the Kanishka was brought down. And incidentally, the most of the people who were killed were Canadians. There were, I think, 87 kids on the board who lost their lives, who lost their young lives at a pretty tender age. And still those terrorists, those facilitators are given safe havens in Canada. If this is not the Pakistan of the West, we need, what else is the Pakistan of the West? Yes, they are a bit smooth operators. They are not as crass as Pakistanis. They don't have this Allahu Akbar and they don't wear these, they don't carry these guns in the open. But here, the government is doing worse than what the Pakistan government has done to protect terror, to harbor these high-profile terrorists, and to do everything to eliminate their rivals, and their rivalries. So by that logic, even Niger could have been eliminated because he was not towing ISI's lines. Niger would have eliminated because he was not taking the new gangs, the new gang members who were coming in. There was a lot of rift between them. So if you look at these three cases, how is Niger's case different than from him? Niger exactly died the way all these three people died. And how come you are putting allegations on India when you don't have one shred of evidence? You have been always harboring terrorists and you have been always working in the interest of terrorists and interest of Khalistan and interest of jihadis. That is what Canada is. You are a backyard of ISI and Pakistanis have infiltrated
and
your government.
Let's not forget China.
And China is your funder, sir. China to paise deta hai na. You see, these Pakistanis don't have money. Where will the money come from? The money is coming from China. The Chinese are controlling your real estate, and through real estate, a lot of illegal cash, illegitimate cash is being pumped into this Canadian economy. So it's a combo of CCP, it's a combo of CIA at times, and it's a combo of your, ISI. So these all are working together, and Justin Trudeau is a puppet. This is the only country where Khalistanis have been able to infiltrate the government. Pakistanis have been able to infiltrate all the government departments, even police, intelligence, everything. And advisors to the Canadian Prime Minister have been people of Pakistani descent. God save you. Looking at what has happened to Pakistan, if your Pakistanis are your advisors, फिर तो भगवान ही आपको बचाए. That is all we can say. And this country of Canada is going down the drain with you.
Right, absolutely. And Lieutenant General Kamaljeet Singh, former commander of Western Army, with us as well. General Singh, I hope you can hear me, sir.
Yeah, I can hear you, Vineet.
So what Mr. Hayer told the RCMP after hearing this conversation in the UK, was in fact matching with the investigation and the placement of the bomb, and this is something which was confirmed by the RCMP. After the attempt on his life in 1988, in which he got paralyzed, there was still no discounts or concessions given to him. He was left to fend for himself, and 10 years later, he was murdered. This is obviously a big lapse, which is still being shoved under the carpet.
See, Vineet, Jai Hind, and it's good to be on your show. You're keeping sustained focus on an issue which requires to be gone into great detail. See, going through this investigation and other things which have been put out, killing of Tara Hayer, who was running the Indo-Canadian Times, and also of Tarsem Purewal, who was editing Desh Pardesh, both had evidence connected with this Kanishka tragedy. And unfortunate part is, instead of protecting these vital links, 329 people died, but you were 2 Japanese, and what was being referred to that it could have been spectacular more spectacular or more horrible. Because imagine if that bomb at Narita airport had also gone off during the flight, because it was because the flight had got delayed, so it was in the luggage handling, people had got eliminated and the bomb did not have its desired effect. Another 300 odd people would have perished. So imagine what kind of diabolic plan was put in place. And you are right that, in Canada, the Royal Canadian Mounted Police and CSIS are two agencies. And Canadian State Intelligence Services have been known to be not only inefficient, but also hobnobbing with all kinds of people. The day before yesterday, the Bangladesh's foreign minister, he put out a statement to say that the self-acclaimed killer of Bangabandhu, Sheikh Mujibur Rahman, is found shelter in Canada. That apart, Karima Baloch, the lady who was killed. So many things like this have happened over there. And even Hardeep Nijjar was meeting the Canadian State Intelligence Service people on weekly basis nearly. He had one meeting 1 or 2 days before his being killed, and one meeting was scheduled 3 days after that. Now, such frequent meetings with a person with such questionable reputation and dealings only points to the fact that he could have been an agent, he could have been an informer, he could have been working with CSIS, which in itself is very dangerous. So, all in all, it's a very sad combination of manifestation of vote bank politics, which has brought the so-called National Democratic Party to exercise that veto power or that control over the Trudeau's party. And unless we get some relief from that, and we have a situation where conservatives come to power, these things, and in any case, I hope the I-5 countries, Five Eyes, they now put pressure on Canada and tell them to clean up their ecosystem. You cannot have a reputation of being asylum-giving facility for all killers. Father of the nation of Bangladesh's killer comes to Canada. Some people who are involved with LTT are sheltered in Canada. And Indian fugitives are in Canada. So all this cannot be allowed. It's time Canada cleans up its act, and instead of accusing India, works with Indian agencies. Yes. If there is anything credible, show it to them. Where is the harm? That's what Americans have also told them.
Absolutely, but sir. You're quite right about it. Major General Rajan Kochar, senior defense expert, also with us on the program. General Kochar, can you hear me, sir? Thank you for
Yes, I can hear you. I can hear you, Vineet.
So when you want to solve a crime and you have somebody who's picked up cues about that crime and starts to get death threats, it is obvious, even to a toddler, that these are the crumbs that you need to follow. These are the trails that you need to follow to get to the bottom of it. You don't have to be Hercule Poirot. You don't have to be a detective to figure this out. This was common sense, which was perhaps ignored or perhaps even brushed aside or concealed willingly by the Canadian intelligence. Why do you think they indulged in this dirty business? This obviously reeks of a sentiment of being hand in glove with the perpetrators of this horrendous plane crash.
So, Vineet, thanks a lot for inviting me over. There are a few angles to it. We must have a look at these angles. The first is that justice was given, or the judgment of this case was delivered after 18 years. And why 18 years? Because the Canadian Mounted Police and the intelligence services of Canada did not put together whatever evidence they had to make the a case, a close and shut case. So what happens is only one person gets convicted, and the major players who were involved, like Ripudavan Malik, Bagri, and all these guys, they go scot-free. So the first focus is it speaks on your investigative agencies, it speaks on your judicial system of the country, because you have such laws in place which make it very convenient for people from outside to commit a crime and come and hide in Canada. Journal KJ has brought out very correctly. You had the LTT guys here, you had the Bangladeshis here, and you have the Khalistanis here, and in close nexus with ISI. Since 1980s, ISI has taken advantage of this entire situation, the Khalistan movement, which was actually going on. And this guy, Niger, in the last about 2-3 years, has been twice to Pakistan. His passports are actually suggesting that. So it is a very, very clear indication. Today, the ISI has, I am given to understand, has moved 15 terrorists on the list of Khalistani terrorists to safe houses in Islamabad and on the bordering area of Iran to ensure their security and safety, because there is also gang war which is taking place in Canada today, which is taking its toll on these people because they are fighting amongst each other and killing each other. Now, to talk about the political system also is extremely important here. Ambassador actually mentioned about the Liberal Party and the Conservative Party. But my opinion on this is that these people are so much deeply entrenched into the society of Canada because they've been there for 5 to 6 generations. They actually came almost in the last decade. So you have to understand that whatever political party may come into play, the damage control will become very difficult for that political party to ensure cleansing of Canada. Actually, it requires a cleansing, it requires a leader of that kind of a stature who can rise above these politics of vote banks. Because what is happening is Jagmeet Singh, I'll give you an example of Jagmeet Singh. He's been taken along with Trudeau because Trudeau was falling short of the majority, and Jagmeet is a known pro-Khalistan supporter. So if you have such people who are part of the governance itself, how do you expect them to go hard on these Khalistanis? They have to go soft. And today, if Trudeau has made a statement, please try to analyze why Trudeau has made this statement and why has he made it now? Because of the impending elections in 2025, he is under pressure from Jagmeet Singh. He was rather compelled to make a statement, otherwise the government would fall. So they are very, very deep-rooted issues as far as Canada is concerned, and I'm absolutely in agreement with Sumit Peer when he says that it is the Pakistan of the West, because today if you can harbor terrorists, and what is the United States doing? I would lastly like to highlight the role of United States here, because United States has been coming forward that we are against terrorism, we must put an end to terrorism. But it is these meetings of our External Affairs Minister right now in Washington with Jake Sullivan and Anthony Blinken, they are asking India to cooperate. To cooperate with what? I mean, there is nothing to cooperate because there is no credible evidence which has been provided to the Indian government. So these are the issues which we talk about I-5 countries also. I don't think their stance is going to change because, see, it's a Western alliance, and when we talk about global North and global South, there is a huge gap between the thinking of these two nations. And unless this thinking
you're right, sir. You're
global
absolutely
north and
right.
south changes.
Ambassador Mukherjee, what really surprises me is if the American and the Canadian Secret Services, specifically the Canadian Secret Service can figure out, that a known terrorist was killed with the help of some Indian diplomats' help, then why could not they figure out something that happened in their own backyard with sufficient proof for so long? They still are waiting for something new to be released, but the fact of the matter is that everything has been in front of them for decades now and they have chosen to ignore it. This also is indicative and suggestive of the fact how they treat people, how they perceive people who have come from India to live in Canada.
First of all, Vineet, there is no comparison between the two cases. The first one, which is the downing of the Kanishka, was the worst terrorist incident globally until 9/11 happened. And therefore, since it was known who had done the bombing, it is absolutely criminal on the part of the Canadian authorities not to have taken action and to have let them go scot-free. As far as this incident is concerned, as we've already informed the Americans and the Canadians, we would be happy to look at any evidence linking any of our intelligence agencies with an extrajudicial killing, which we have strenuously denied. No such evidence has been produced. This is all hearsay. This is an attempt to blacken India's reputation internationally at a time when we've just hosted a highly successful G20 summit and brought about a consensus on an issue like Ukraine. So I actually think, in my perspective, that the Americans are slowly stepping into damage control mode. They are fully aware that they cannot allow this incident to have a direct impact on the American-India strategic partnership, where they desperately need India, particularly in the Quad and Indo-Pacific. They are stepping slowly into damage control mode. If you look at Trudeau's statement a week ago and now, he is also slowly backing off. But we have to keep the pressure on him, and we have to keep the pressure on the Americans to make them understand that, as Dr. Jaishankar has said, there are still a few nations only who think they can call the shots, but it's not true anymore. Those few nations don't call the shots anymore. And India, as a proud country, will not accept the blackening of its reputation without a shred of evidence. And no evidence has been given so far because there is no evidence. This man was gunned down, obviously by a rival gang. And a few days later, another such a person was also gunned down. And there has been gunning down of people in neighboring Pakistan because of gang wars. So these are gang wars. They cannot drag in India into it. But yes, we should certainly, after they have downsized or during their downsizing, we should shut some of their trade missions so that they understand it's not business as usual. They can't take advantage of the huge Indian market and expect us to keep quiet when they blacken our reputation internationally.
Sumit Peer, we need to send a message to Canada here. They need to clean up a lot of elements from their own backyard. They need to do a lot of introspection when it comes to putting out abject lies without any proof. And the Indian government and the Indian External Affairs Minister has been very categorically saying that we are ready to engage with you, we are ready to talk with you, but if you're not going to produce proof, if you're not going to produce any iota of substantiation, then we will be reminded of what your history is, how you have ignored the biggest terrorist attack on your own soil. You need to in fact clean your house first.
Vineet, Canada is the only country in which 87 kids get killed in the biggest ever air disaster terrorist attack. Majority of the people who were killed in Kanishka were Canadians. Yet, Canada is the only country wherein a so-called plumber is on a no-fly list, but when he gets killed, the hell breaks loose. So for a normal tax-paying Canadian, law-abiding citizen who gets killed in a terrorist attack, no problem, it's all okay. But when a plumber on a no-fly list gets killed, the hell breaks loose. And what Dr. Jaishankar, what I liked about his statement is when he said that, look, gone are those days wherein, some people think they can make the rules for the other people to follow, and they can mend or amend these rules as per their political convenience. So he was hinting at the whole Western world. There are gone as those days where you can make our rules and then you can be the judge and the jury for how the rules are being implemented as by us. And when it comes to your term, you will amend the rules and you will change the rules to be politically correct. Those days are gone. That water is under the bridge. Those times are gone. India will set its own set of rules. Vineet, I want to make one point as an individual, as a private individual, as a political commentator. We saw, when it comes to self-defense, every organization, every human, every living creature has a right to self-defense, right? Right or wrong? Has. Now you tell me, there's a small country called Israel. They did Munich whenever they have to do 20, 30 years back. So when it comes to self-defense, is India and Indians an exception? Do you think 101.4 billion Indians have no right to self-defense? Do you think 1.4 billion Indians are string ducks and your whims and fancies will come and dictate how can we live and when should we die? And who will kill us, and how that person will be harbored in any country? Do you think you live in fool's paradise where you can dictate these terms to 20% of the world's population? Do you think you can dictate these terms to a nuclear triad? Do you think you can dictate these terms to the country with the third powerful military? If somebody thinks like that, Vineet, he has to really get his mental faculty checked and really get a psychiatric tested, because gone are those days. And when I looked at the Israel, it is this big country. And when I looked at the map of India last time, I think we are slightly bigger than Israel. And if Israel had the right to do that 30 years back, I think we hold the right to do it even today, going future and going in any decades in future. There is nobody on planet Earth who can come and question you, can you do it or not? What is the international order or not? I don't give a damn to it. Tell me, how come your country is harboring terrorists? Pehle uska jawab do. How come all the killers, or General Saab rightly pointed out, all the killers across the world end up in your country? Like all the economic offenders end up in London. How come all the killers and all the perpetrators and all the criminals end up in Canada? What is the logic between here? How come everybody is coming to your country? And how come when we are in a worse terror attack, your Canadian citizens get killed, you have no problem, but a plumber on a no-fly list becomes such a diplomatic issue? What is the real story, Justin? Talk about that. What is your Jugalbandi with Jasmeet? Talk about that. How much you are compromised as an individual? Talk about that. What is your so much of proximity? What is of your so much of proximity with Jagmeet Singh? Talk about that. Vineet, I think it is much beyond politics. ये रिश्ता और कुछ कहलाता है. I can't talk more on it, but I think it's much beyond politics.
Right, General Singh, this propaganda and this system of misinformation that is, prospering and blossoming in Canada and influencing, the younger Sikh community as well, is obviously being facilitated by a system which is prevalent in Canada. They peddle it as free speech, but it is not free speech. It is perhaps apathy towards realizing what you are doing to an entire generation of immigrants who have gone to Canada to create a better future for themselves. This is obviously also pointing out big gaps in the system that Canada promises and the system that Canada delivers for these immigrants.
See, Vineet, Khushwant Singh once wrote a very nice thing about this idea of Khalistan. He said Khalistan is something which exists in 3 to 4 inches of space in the mind of few people from Punjab who have no relevance here and who have gone to countries like UK, Canada, and some of them in USA. Frankly, because these are fringe elements. I have a very close friend who lives in Winnipeg. And when Sukhdev Singh Sukha was killed, I got concerned and I sent him a WhatsApp. I said, yeah, listen, this is happening in Winnipeg. I hope you all are safe. It took him 3 days to find out that Sukhdev Singh has indeed been killed. So in Canada, the sensible people are not impacted by this. It is the fringe element which has taken charge of Gurdwaras, which has taken charge of this kind of unfortunate narrative. And what is also happening is that demographically they are located in such a way that whatever happens, this party of Jagmeet Singh Dhaliwal, the so-called Democratic Party, gets about 15 to 20 seats in all elections. And it also gets a role in running of British Columbia. This is the electoral fact of Canada. Now, this is being taken advantage of. Unless we have to take up this thing, our battle for narrative has to be ramped up. We have to educate those people, listen and see. We owe it to our diaspora. The majority of them are not involved in this. There are young children who go to study there. You think of their plight. And see, another thing in Punjab, in last 3-4 years, a large number of non-Sikhs are going to study there because they find it a very nice and economical method to acquire degrees. They may not settle down, all of them, but they go and study there. So what happens to them? So this is something I'm sure our foreign minister has taken it up with Americans and Canadians and others, that please look at safety of these people, the children who've gone to study there. In any case, this year's education thing has been thrown out of gear. The education counselors have told people that don't plan for going to Canada for this academic session. And sooner or soon, Canada will begin to feel the pinch, because Canada's education economy is very heavily dependent on India. About 25 to 30% income comes from India. So I hope they take this little thing which has come up now. I hope this remains controlled and it is resolved. And we get back to what now Trudeau has started saying, that he's interested in having long-term relationship with India. I hope he slowly climbs back. It's difficult, but I hope he does that, because there are certain signs. Their Deputy Chief of Army Staff, Scott Davis, he came to India. He attended that conference. He made the right noises. He said that we need to have long-term relationship with India in Indo-Pacific. So hopefully Canada will take lessons from this. And Vineet, I am an optimist. I always look at the light at the end of the tunnel. So I hope, because we have congress with Canada in many fields, and one Trudeau should not spoil this. We somehow have to think of life beyond Trudeau. He's just in, he can become just out. And then what? And we have to protect our diaspora, and we have to think of the people. Canada is the largest country in area, and India is the most populous country. So, and Canada has skill deficiency. Where will they get people from? India is a natural choice, and India has got skilled people. So let us make it a win-win partnership.
Absolutely. And General Kochhar, let's also not forget that there is a problem that Justin Trudeau also faces in terms of the economy, in terms of the inflation, in terms of the rising crime in Canada. He is looking for distractions. He's looking to pin the blame on somebody else. However, the External Affairs Minister also went on to say that the permissiveness regarding violence against Indian diplomats and extremism in Canada, they have been extremely complacent. Do you think that the situation is likely to change despite India's strong protest, or do you think that in a matter of a few days or a few weeks, this is something that Canada will once again, slip under the carpet?
See, if Trudeau is a sensible man, he is losing 68,000 crores worth of revenue from 3.5 lakh Indian students who are studying in Canada today. And secondly, if he aligns with India, because India is a growing economic power, he is only going to benefit. So ultimately, he is causing harm to his own country, to his own people, and it is going to become his political Waterloo in the next elections, because the opposition will shred him apart. So I think, and I am also an optimistic, like General KJ said, that I think this impasse will shortly end. It may take a few months, it may not end immediately, because there are a large number of issues to be addressed. And what is important is, in foreign affairs, it's not what you say. You also have to listen to what the other country has to say. It has to be a mutual kind of a respect with each other. It has to have a shared vision only then two countries can come closer to each other. And I feel that India has taken the right step to put that kind of pressure on Canada today, so that Canada is compelled to take a decision for the better. There would be a pressure from the United States also. And that is why I feel this impasse, whatever is happening today, it will be a short-lived one. But we have to understand one thing. We'll be able to get over this particular situation of Niger today. But what happens, because there are many Nigers in Canada today, and it is going to happen again and again. So the bigger and the larger question is the 5.1% of Indian population who are voting these characters like Jagmeet into power. They have to be educated, they have to be targeted, they have to think what is good for the country, and they must understand that people like Jagmeet are bringing down a downfall of their own country. So these are very, very important issues, pressing issues, which don't have instant solution beneath.
All right, Ambassador Mukherjee, concluding thoughts from you. The External Affairs Minister obviously met Anthony Blinken as well, apprised him of the sensitivity that exists between these two countries. But he also went on to press that the Americans are not familiar with the entirety of what's going on in Canada. Obviously, there is a version that the Canadians also are feeding to the Americans.
I think what the External Affairs Minister said was, Vineet, that the Americans have now got a much better perspective of the Indian position, which means that Dr. Jaishankar took the opportunity of explaining several issues to the Americans, some of which the Americans are already aware of, and others which he highlighted. For example, he must have underlined the growing nexus between drug money, terrorism, hawala funding, etc., and the danger that it poses if it comes back to a highly sensitive frontier state in India, where there is actually no such movement. But you can see, for instance, the ramifications that only yesterday our High Commissioner in London was not allowed to enter a Gurdwara in Scotland by one activist, but the Gurdwara committee had not been prepared for such an eventuality, and so they were unable to show him away. The one activist tried to open the High Commissioner's door handle, at which point his driver and his security reversed the car and left. These are all indications that unless such movements are nipped in the bud, it can spread in some of these countries, particularly UK and USA, and they will not impact India directly, but they will definitely impact in a highly detrimental manner the bilateral relationship, which is why I said a little earlier that you can already see a significant watering down in the public postures which have been taken by the Americans and by the Canadians. And why do I say it? Because United States is an election year, and so is India. And as far as Trudeau is concerned, his election is in 2025, but his government can be brought down anytime if he doesn't play ball with these extremists who are propping him up. So it's a very insecure government. So under those circumstances, I would say that the Americans simply cannot afford alienating the Indo-strategic partnership on such an issue, which is actually, as one of our co-panelists said, that he rang up his friend in Winnipeg who did not even know that such a thing had happened. This is what my friends in Canada tell me, that you people are discussing it every day on Indian media channels. We are not even bothered. We are going about our work. We don't care. And we will fix this Trudeau in the next general election. They have a completely different perspective, the Indian diaspora. And it's a fact that except for the threats which they made openly and directly to non-Sikhs to go home, that is the only time when the Indian diaspora really got upset. Otherwise, they say, who are these people? Why are they making such a fuss? It doesn't even make a difference in Canada. So we have to take this in a perspective, Vineet. And I would agree with my co-panelist who said that we would see it dying down over the next 5-6 months. But in the meantime, we should take the opportunity of teaching Mr. Trudeau a lesson that he surely deserves. Because what he did was unforgivable, Vineet.
Right. And Sumit, some people would like to also call it political suicide. Would you concur?
Vineet, first of all, the biggest problem is dynastic politics. You know what Prime Minister Modi rightly says, Vanshwad ek zahar hai, is a poison for a democracy. And this zahar or this poison is as dangerous as India and as dangerous in Canada. What is Justin Trudeau? He is just his father's son. He is there because he is born to a particular parent, and that is why he is destined to be a leader. He failed as an actor, he failed as a model, he failed as a film producer, he failed as a businessman. Then eventually, because you are a political dynast, so you will become the Prime Minister of Canada. So that is how dangerous this political dynast can be, and that is how dangerous these private limited companies in politics, I call them not families, I call them private limited companies in politics are. Because the products which you give or give as options, national options, can be disastrous. What has this man done except disaster? He and his father let Pakistan's ISI get a foothold in Canada. They let Khalistanis enter the political system of the Canada. They let Khalistanis control the Gurdwaras of Canada. They let Khalistan to be used for harboring terrorists. They let Canada, wherein a Jambaz Khan can go to Surrey and can go to meet this Jambaz Khan, that High Commissioner of Pakistan, to Gurdwaras and meet them and plan, orchestrate this violence against India. This Prime Minister talks about the Kisan Andolan when he doesn't know the difference between Jawar and Bajra. I mean, this is what a country we are talking about here. This man is not good enough. He is, whatever time he's getting is, he's already living a borrowed life. He's not worthy. He's not fit enough to rule there. For people who are worthy, they will have some remorse. I'll lose something, because already whenever, as many days he is there, it's his good luck he's there. Minus that, what is this man good for? And as far as the Canada is concerned, you see, I agree that this turmoil will settle in a month or so. But one thing is very, very subtle here. Mr. Anthony Blinken or Jack Sullivan did not utter the word Canada. They did not question India. They did not support Canada. They said, we have got an Indian perspective. So I think that itself is a win. Now, you see how many people have been meeting Dr. Jaishankar in UN? Phenomenal. How many people have said this time we want India's seat in UNSC is phenomenal. Is a testament to India's, diplomatic muscle, I will see. How many people have today said that, India is a country in making? Look at after the G20. The president of the African Union said India is a bigger superpower than China. And the biggest testimony to what I've been saying is Japan. When Japan says, who's himself a contender for UNSC permanent seat and a veto power, he says, Japan says, if India gets the veto power, I will withdraw my claim. Because I know if Indians get that veto power, I will be happy and contented with the wisdom and with the diplomacy of India. So that India rising to the global stage is fermented. And where is Canada in this bigger scale of things?
Fair enough, Sumit. Those are good points. Unfortunately, we have run out of time. I would like to thank all my guests for being a part of this conversation.
For more such videos, subscribe to the NewsX YouTube channel, hit the bell icon.